Hey guys, happy May. It's that time of month again where I finally get to talk about all the books that I read in the previous month. So today we're discussing all the things I finished in April. I'm also going to talk about the things I DNF'd and a couple other random things. So the first book I read in April was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I am a huge Sally Rooney fan, and I finally picked up another one of her books. I find her writing really relatable and really refreshing, easy to read, but still talking about so many complicated topics. If you haven't heard of Conversations with Friends, it is about our main character Frances and her best friend Bobby, and they're both in college. A lot of Sally Rooney's writing takes place in college because I'm pretty sure she wrote this during her MFA. This is her debut novel, I believe. They're in college and they have this relationship with a married couple who are about 10 years older than both of them. And the book just kind of follows the dynamics between the relationships of the four of them and how those dynamics change in different situations. Like they go on vacation together, they come back, there's mental health issues. I think Sally Rooney also just encapsulates the nuances of female friendships so well. I just think it's fabulous. I really loved this novel. Like I would totally reread this in the future. I even did a little tribute bullet journal spread that I did not complete. I had made this spread so that I could write my thoughts in these 2 pages. Maybe I'll get back to this eventually. I did read this digitally through my library. Then I saw this copy secondhand and I wanted to have a copy for myself to keep and to reread at some other point in time. So the next book that I finished in April is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover herself. I have not read a Colleen Hoover book in quite a while. I picked this one up because it's just been on my shelf for a while. I really love the cover of it and I actually loved it. I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed this book. I annotated it a lot, which I wasn't expecting. I basically went into reading this book trying to break a reading slump because I was just reading really slowly and not really feeling sucked into anything I was reading. And I remembered that when I read Colleen Hoover books, it is definitely something that is page turners, you want to keep going. I think this is my most annotated book to date. It's about a girl named Kenna who is trying to get back to her daughter after she gets out of a 5-year prison sentence. Yeah, I thought this book was really good at making you empathize with both sides of the conflict. You're really rooting for Kenna to get back with her daughter, but you're also rooting for her daughter's caretakers to protect her and feel safe. I thought the romance was not the greatest. I don't think I'm a huge fan of Colleen Hoover's romance. I feel like they usually feel very rushed and superficial, but I liked the angst that was there between the mother-daughter relationship and her past love. There's a lot of flashbacks to a past relationship, a partner who died, and grief is talked about a lot in this book. I really enjoyed those parts because I was able to relate to those. If you want something easy to read and I was gonna say fun, but it's not fun, something that will keep you engaged, this is a good book. I also did a bullet journal spread that I finished this time for Reminders of Him. It's in a small town, so I really loved the small town vibes of this. I want to read more books that take place in small towns and that are about people of a regular income or lower class poor people, because I'm just so tired of reading books that are all about extremely wealthy people spending money on random nonsense. I liked that in this book, we went to a Walmart, she worked at a grocery store, we went to McDonald's, just normal things that I can picture those really well. We had a lot of scenes in the grocery store because she worked there, and I became a grocery store mega fan. I had no idea until reading this book that I loved scenes that take place in the grocery store so much. I just think that the vibes, the ambiance of the aisles and the snack foods around you, just the grocery store is such a fun place. I love going to the grocery store. I enjoy it in my regular life. I think it's fun. And now I need to read more small town books that have grocery stores in it. The next book I read is 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl by Mona Awad. This is Mona Awad's first novel. I discovered Mona Awad last month in January, February, in March when I read Money, and that became a 5-star read, favorite book of that month. So I want to read everything that she writes now. So I went back to her first novel. She has a third one called All's Well that's on my stack of books to read right now. It was okay. I enjoyed it. It's a collection of 13 vignettes about our narrator, Lizzie. Our narrator, her name is Lizzie, and she goes through different periods of her life being fat, getting thin, being fat again, getting thin again, and just the ways that people treat her. The stories are narrated from different perspectives sometimes to showcase like the ways that people are treating her and thinking about her, and then also from her perspective to show like how she's thinking about her body and like other people's bodies. I thought it was really informative. I've been thin my whole life. I was extremely underweight as a child, and I guess I just kind of have a fast metabolism, so I never really thought about things like this, so I thought it was like useful to read. There's this one story where our narrator is talking to a thin coworker and they get lunch together every day, and some things that the thin coworker was saying that like really were bugging the narrator who was overweight. I've literally been the person to say that stuff like to my friends who are overweight, or just like my friends in general. So I think that was really helpful to just like see how annoying you can be when you say certain things and you're skinny. It was a good wake-up call for me to just kind of be more careful or considerate. So that was good to know. I really loved the story Your Biggest Fan. I liked She'll Do Anything. I do think that this book has a lot of anger in it, which rightfully so. It's fine to be angry. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting to see this perspective and kind of necessary for me to read through. And I still did relate to things that were in here, even though it was like about the experience of being fat. It still lends itself well to like the experience of just not feeling pretty or not feeling like very valued by another person or taken advantage of or used. So yeah, I thought this was a really interesting book, and I would recommend reading this, just if for anything, just to understand the mindset of like how it feels to just be fat if you've been skinny your whole life. So the next book that I read in April was my favorite book of the month, and that was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Yes, I'm late to the party, like 10 years late. I have loved the movies for years and years. I've rewatched them so many times, probably like once every year. I've just never read the books. I read like a little bit of the first book when I was a teen, never finished it. I wasn't a big reader at that time, but yeah, I finally got around to it and it was amazing. The hype is well worth it. It's the best YA book I've ever read, the most complex and subtle. I think there's so much great societal commentary about classism in this book. Katniss is a great main character to follow. She's a badass, but she's not super annoying. There are times when she's annoying, but I don't know. I feel like I can understand when she's annoying, like why she's so angry or why she's being so rash. I think the back of the book describes it a lot better than I am doing, so I'll just read this. In the ruins of a place once known as North America lies the nation of Panem, a shining capital surrounded by 12 outlying districts. The capital keeps the districts in line by forcing them all to send one boy and one girl between the ages of 12 and 18 to participate in the annual Hunger Games, a fight to the death on live TV. 16-year-old Katniss Everdeen regards it as a death sentence when she steps forward to take her sister's place in the games. But Katniss has been close to death before, and survival for her is second nature. Still, if she is to win, she will have to start making choices that weigh survival against humanity and life against love. This book is just so good. I know this is a book I'm going to reread many, many times. I annotated it quite a lot. I only have 2 tabs in there because I'm just finding that I'm not a big tab person. Whenever I tab books, they like get all crinkly and stuff, and I just don't like the way that looks or feels. I'd like to state on the record, I'm still not really a Peeta fan. I like Gale better. I felt like that during the movies too, that I was always a Gale fan more than Peeta, and I just thought it was because I liked Gale's actor more, but in the books too. I like Gale more than Peeta, but I understand why the story is going where it's going. Peeta stomping through the woods, just being super loud, it was like such an ick for me. Just like walk quieter, you know? I also really loved getting to experience the Capitol in the book instead of in the movie. Like the movie did a great job with like showing the extreme unnecessary decadence and lavish life of the people that live in the Capitol, but it was so cool to like read Katniss experiencing the food for the first time and like how it made her feel. I went to Texas Roadhouse for the first time this month, and I was eating the bread and the cinnamon butter and the ribs, and it was all so just buttery and rich, and I literally felt like Katniss, because when she gets to the Capitol, she's eating these extremely rich foods that it's like making her sick because she's not used to eating it. And that's how I felt there. I was like, I probably ate a pound of butter in that meal. I couldn't even finish it, but I was like, I get her. I get what she was going through. So yes, I loved this. 5 out of 5 stars. Please read the series if you haven't read it. It is just great. And then skipping out of order just a little bit for continuity's sake, I also read Catching Fire this month. I mostly read this digitally, and then I bought the paperback, well, the hardcover to have. I've got some notes on this. There is a lot of political setup in this book in the first, I want to say like third or even the first half maybe, that I found a little bit slow. It was necessary to get us prepared for book 3 Mockingjay, which I haven't read yet, but I will absolutely be reading in May. I was just getting a little bit bored, and I felt like the pacing of the setup could have been quicker. Like, I feel like some of the information, the way it was given, was kind of dragged out. That being said, the piece of setup that I thought was like absolutely amazing was the introduction of President Snow. President Snow was discussed in book 1. We actually meet him and get to have a conversation with him in this book. And the chapter that President Snow and Katniss have their kind of little conversation in Katniss's house, I feel like that's a masterclass of writing a villain. I have read so many YA and fantasy and dystopian books where the villain just isn't scary. The villain isn't menacing, they're not powerful enough. This was the issue that I had with Akatar, is Hybern was just not a villain that I was scared of or that I understood his reasons or anything. Like, I just thought he sucked as a villain. Like, he was just not fleshed out at all, and it was kind of lazy. I feel like a lot of fantasy books that I've been reading lately have been like that. But President Snow, even though he's not literally like the villain, like the real villain of the whole series, he's just kind of the face of like this culture and this classism. Like, that is the enemy, that's the villain. But President Snow as a face of this injustice is just such a great, scary villain. And I don't want to use scary as in like, oh, I was like shaking in my boots. I wasn't like literally scared, but he was just great. Like, I understood why he was mad, why he wanted to hurt our characters, why our characters are scared of him, and it just made sense. So I really loved that, because I find that there's so many books that are lacking that, and it makes me completely disappointed in a book. Like, if your villain isn't there, I just can't love the book. This just delivered so well. I also loved the introduction of Finnick and Johanna and all the other tributes that have won the past games. I love Finnick Odair. In the movies, I kind of liked him. I don't know, I thought his story was sad, but I didn't have that many feelings about him. But like, after reading him, I just love him. I love Finnick. I loved the progression of Katniss's relationship with Haymitch in particular, and just like the ways that they communicate. I thought the way they talked like in book 1 was really great too. Just like the nonverbal communication, like with her in the arena and with Haymitch on the outside. I just thought it was so clever and seamless, and Katniss is such a smart main character, just the way that she puts things together. I love that. And I really like Haymitch too. Oh, and getting to see Haymitch's games, they never showed that in the movie. That was crazy. I loved seeing that. That I feel like made me even more of a Haymitch lover. Yeah, I just think the series is amazing with showing like these subtle acts of like brutality from the Capitol, other than the mass genocide of children every year. But there's so many other things that just makes you like understand the fear and the pressure and like the need for an uprising so badly. This series was really just the highlight of my month, and I'm so excited to read Mockingjay. I've been a little bit hesitant to pick it up because I don't want it to be over, but I will definitely be reading that soon and cannot recommend this enough. Also, forgot to mention, I got a Hunger Games t-shirt, which I don't know, anytime I get like super into a fandom, I need to get an extra large t-shirt that I can just wear every day and be obsessed in. The back is pretty cool too. It says, "May the odds be ever in your favor." Love that. So moving on, I read The Dire Days of Willowweep Manor. This was super cute. I just saw it at Barnes & Noble one day when I was browsing around, and had a black main character, and it looked super gothic. Had fantasy elements with these bunnies with green eyes on it. And that was just like a mixture of things I love. Like, it follows our main character Haley, who is like obsessed with gothic literature. She loves Wuthering Heights. She loves Jane Eyre. She writes all of her papers about it and just like cannot stop thinking about that world. Like, she talks in poetry and is just like mega fangirl for this era. So Haley sees this guy drowning this man in the beginning of the book and goes to save him, gets accidentally transported to another dimension with this person, and it is just a wacky book. It's so absurd. I thought it was just going to be like this gothic romance, but it's also about like interdimensional universes and this evil universe goop that it's really hard to explain. I really liked the characters. I thought they were super funny. There's 3 brothers in here that all fall into gothic like tropes. It was also really cool to see a black author writing about black main characters that I don't always get to see in graphic novels, so this was really great, exceeded my expectations, and really fun. I highly recommend this. So the last few things I finished in April, I don't actually have physical copies of. I've been reading them digitally on my iPad, and I'm so excited and happy to say I have been reading the Walking Dead comic books. There's 193 issues. I am on number 13. I am a humongous Walking Dead fan. I have a huge Walking Dead t-shirt collection. I have rewatched the series multiple times. I've been watching it since I was a kid, and I used to like watch every episode on Sundays. And I've never read the comics. I guess this month was just the month of like fandoms that are part of my personality that I haven't read the source material of. I needed to correct those things. I had to read the Hunger Games, and now I have to read The Walking Dead. And I'm actually really enjoying it, the comics. I have tried to read the comics when I was younger, and I just wasn't like a graphic novel person back then, so it was really difficult for me to get into it. But now, having read multiple graphic novels and being used to that medium of storytelling, I was able to get through these a lot easier. I only started reading them yesterday, honestly, and I've gotten through volumes 1 and 2. So here's where I'm at right now, issue 13. I love the cover artworks, like when they're colored in. It's just so cool. The rest of the art is black and white, which I'm not usually a fan of, but you know, we're making it work. It doesn't matter. I love the characters. They feel like family to me. So if you've never seen The Walking Dead, I highly recommend you do, or read the comics. It is about our main character, Rick Grimes, who is a police officer who went into a coma. That he wakes up from his coma and finds that the world has fallen into a zombie apocalypse, and everybody's gone. He's alone. He doesn't know where his family is, doesn't know where the rest of the people of the world are, and is just like, okay, now there's zombies. What? So it's about Rick's journey to find his family, and about the ways that people change when they're put into a life-threatening situation, and the humanity in people, finding bonds between people, and like how scary human beings can be. It is a zombie series, but is by no means a horror series. That's one of the first things Robert Kirkman, the creator of the series, says in issue 1, is that it's not a horror. It's like a survivalist adventure about just all the crazy stuff that people do when they're just trying to survive. It's just an incredible, beautiful series. The art is really great. Even though I prefer like things that are in color, I need to read the series so badly that like I'm gonna be okay with the black and white. And you know, I hope that it makes me like super okay with it, and I can become okay with reading manga next, because I haven't really read any manga ever, because I don't usually like just reading black and white graphic novels. That's been just awesome. I'm also filming a video recording my reactions to every volume or so. So like every volume is 6 issues, and they used to publish them like 1 issue every month, and I'm just getting to read them all together, which is fabulous. Yeah, so that's everything that I completed in April. So here is my sad little DNF category, things that I'm just not going to continue. The first thing on that list, I'm so close to finishing, is City of Ashes. I just don't think I care enough to continue on with Cassandra Clare's series, any of them really. I'm not a fan of her writing. I'm not a fan of any of her characters. I'm not a fan of the story. I really love the world that she made and like the creatures that are in it, but it's just not enough for me. Like, if on book 2 I still don't really feel anything, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I only have like 100 pages left. I know I'm not gonna like this, so I think I'm just over it. Next DNF is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I'm 118 pages through this book. I just am not a Sarah J. Maas fan anymore. I am so sad to say it. I want to love her books, but I just can't. I don't really like her writing style. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't like the way she writes villains or conflict. They all just feel really convoluted and weird and like out of nowhere, and they don't make sense. And I just can't do it anymore. I know there are books out there that I'm going to really love, so I'm like, why am I forcing myself through this when it's like 800 pages? Like, I don't need to force myself through that. Also, there's a YouTube channel called Kari Can Read, and she just does these like huge summaries of like big fat books, like a lot of them being by Sarah J. Maas, and she has a video about the plot of Silver Flame. So I was watching that, and that was more fun for me than actually reading the book, because I'm just like not really into it anymore. So I don't think I'm going to be reading any more Sarah J. Maas or Cassandra Clare, which I'm sad to say because I know a lot of people love those books, but I just don't really like either of their writing. And then I'm extremely sad to say I'll be DNFing The Idiot by Elif Batuman. I was really excited for this book. I'm 56 pages through, and I was really enjoying it where I got up to, but the way that Elif Batuman talks about Black people just felt kind of racist and made me uncomfortable. When it's older books from different times, I feel like I can kind of look past things, which still sucks to have to do, but you know, I do it. You know, I just don't really care to read this book anymore. Like, it was published in 2017. I really wanted to like this book, but I just don't think I am going to finish it. Made me uncomfortable. Yeah, on a happier note, I also just wanted to mention that I did this puzzle this month. I got it secondhand. It was really cute. Oh, it's upside down. It's like this Victorian like horses and buildings puzzles. I've been like trying to get more into puzzles, so I have no proof that I finished it because I already put it back into the box, but trust me. And I also did some painting this month, which was pretty fun. I painted in watercolor these 2 little mythical girls. This is the coloring book that I paint in sometimes, so I just kind of wanted to show I've been doing that as well. And I also just want to quickly mention, these are books that I'm still in the middle of that I will hopefully be finishing up next month. I'm about halfway through The Secret History, like an 1/8 of the way through Middlemarch, halfway through Winn-Dixie, and still in the beginnings of Wuthering Heights. But these are books that I've been reading throughout April but just haven't finished yet. And I'll talk about them a little bit more in my May TBR video, so be on the lookout for that. So that concludes all of the books that I read in April. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you want to see more of me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.